welcome to another episode of the early evening show with me, Eshaan Akbar. How are you? Hope you're doing all right and had a lovely week. Thank you so much to the people that have listened and commented already. If you're listening to this on audio, remember you can go and watch this on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hello. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining me for another episode. What a week it's been. I've had a very interesting week. On Tuesday, I did a gig, shall we say, slightly inebriated. The evening just kind of got away from me, and it's very rare that I ever do any gigs where I'm feeling that jolly. I'm a professional. That's one thing that I think people will say about me, is that, say what you want about Eshaan, he is very professionale. There've only been a couple of incidents, or a couple of times where I've not fully held up my end of the bargain in professionalism, and I think Tuesday at the 99 Club was that. However, I have it on good authority that it didn't go too badly, you know? And that, I think, speaks to my talent. It's to be able to do your job to that level of, I was so drunk. And it was a Tuesday, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Why? I met up with my boy Preet Singh. We host setlist sessions, which, by the way, the next one is on the 3rd of March at London's Top Secret Comedy Club. The lineup is already fucking awesome. We're going to announce it properly, probably tomorrow or today at the time of recording this podcast. So check it out. Setlist sessions, Tuesday the 3rd of March at Top Secret Comedy Club, Drury Lane. So Preet and I were just hanging out, talking about setlist sessions and what we're going to do with it going forward. Under the banner, we run a pub quiz, we do a dating show, we do these monthly comedy shows. So there's a lot of work to be done. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I ended up doing this gig because of Preet. I'm not going to blame Preet. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to blame myself, because ultimately I'm responsible for my own choices and my own actions. I'm a 41-year-old man, for goodness sake, you know, who has had a very, very nice career in this comedy industry. So, by the same token, that it is nice, I think, sometimes to have a bit of abandon. Sometimes it's just nice to feel free to make horrific... No, it wasn't horrific. To make, shall we say, unwise choices. I think as we get older, our propensity for making unwise choices somewhat lowers. And I think that is what the real price we pay for adulthood is. You know, when you're a child, you make unwise choices all the time. As a teenager in your 20s, you're making unwise choices to help you get the knowledge that you need to be able to become a functioning, useful member of society. But more often than not, those decisions make you, a part of society. And society can be a bit boring, can't it? If we're honest. Society can sometimes just feel a bit like, Is this what it's all? Is this what it's all about? You're born, and then you get raised, and then you hopefully have, fairly decent-ish parents, and they love you and they're nice to you, and then you get yourself a nice job, and before that you go to uni, get a good degree, do all that stuff, and then eventually you just lay on your deathbed and you're like, oh, I lived my life pretty normally. I made wise decisions the whole time. Look, there are some wise decisions that are worthwhile making. Pensions, your retirement plans, financial investments, sure. But isn't there something quite great about just being like, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want. It's a Tuesday, I'm going to end up drinking too much, and then I'm going to do a gig. I think that's a bit of fun, don't you? I can't tell you how the gig went. That's the truth. They have sent me a video. I haven't watched the video. Maybe we can watch it together at some point. I have no intention of watching the video, but I've been told on good authority that it went fine. It went good, you know? And that's all I can hope for. So that was that on the Tuesday. 99 Comedy Club. It's a wonderful comedy club. One of my favourites to perform at. Check it out if you're ever in London. It's in Leicester Square. They have shows Tuesdays to Sundays. You know? Not Mondays. That was implicit. I didn't... Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then I spent the rest of the week pretty much in Leicester, baby. Leicester. I was doing a gig, but the fun thing I did was I judged the New Comedian of the Year final. Leicester New Comedian of the Year. This used to be called the Leicester Mercury Comedian of the Year. And let me tell you something. The Leicester Comedian of the Year is a prestigious award, right? And usually you're nominated for it by promoters and bookers from all over the country, right? I've never been nominated for it. Never been nominated, but I have now judged it twice, which I think is a flex. Leicester Mercury Comedian of the Year. I'm just looking up who the previous winners were. I know that Ramesh Ranganathan was one of the winners. Leicester Comedian of the Year. Right, let's have a look. So, some names that have won this award. Look at this. Johnny Vegas, Jason Manford, Carl Donnelly, Sean Walsh, Josh Widdicombe, Ramesh Ranganathan, like I said. And more recently, Louise Atkinson, Daniel Petrie, Firuza Sari, Nina Gilligan. Some names, man. You know, some names have won this competition. So I had the privilege of judging the final. It was a really good final, and the winner was Chloe Reynolds. When you're on these things, I was on it because I was a patron of. I am a patron of the Leicester Comedy Festival. How did I get that job? I don't know. You know, I do the Leicester Comedy Festival a lot. It's on every February. Some big names, smaller names. I really love it as a festival. I think it's so good. I think there's such a range of talent available in a very accessible part of the country. You know, Leicester's in the Midlands. It's accessible to a lot of people. And they really look after you at the festival. You know, they book accommodation for you and they give you plenty of time slots. So over the years, I've done it a fair bit. And a couple of years ago, they asked me to become a patron of the festival, which I really, really loved. And one of the things I was keen to do when I became patron was to try and come up with some sort of scheme to provide access to more people doing comedy. And Bridging the Gap was born. So one of the first things I did on this particular run of nights I was there is I hosted the Bridging the Gap showcase. Really fun and a lovely time. Then I did a gig at a place called Menzies, which is in Wigston. Look, these are places I don't know. I don't know where these places are. But I did a gig there. That was really great. What a wonderful crowd. Leicester and surrounding areas, always brilliant crowds to play to. Amongst one of my favourites. Very underrated as a comedy city. They're very comedy savvy. And because it's such a diverse... Yeah, it's such a diverse city... Actually, you know, there's a range of comedians get to really showcase their skills there. So Leicester, you know, big up you. And then it was Leicester Comedian of the Year final. It used to be called the Mercury Comedian of the Year. And basically there's me and 5 other judges. We had Altaf Sarwar, my boy from Love Entertainment. He's the man who single-handedly built the Asian comedy circuit in the UK. He's an absolutely diamond man. And I've got a lot of love for him. So he was there. Taylor McLeod from Up the Creek, another one. We became friends at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival quite a few years ago. Basically, simply crossing each other's paths at 3 or 4 in the morning, going from bar to bar. Like, we just walk past each other, like, all right, and then that's how we became friends. Georgie from Gag Reflex, and another comedy agency, and Izzy from Avalon, one of the biggest comedy agencies as it happens. And we judged the final, went out, had a great time, got royally sloshed, which was really fun. And then on Sunday, I did a gig at a place called Davenham. Now, Davenham. Gig was great. Had a wonderful time. But they were very clear that they wanted the name of their town stroke village stroke municipality. No, municipality is bigger. Town, village, enclave. What's the smallest? What's the smallest town? Let me check this out. Town, village, enclave. What's the smallest enclave? What's the smallest size? Settlement. A hamlet. Interesting. So a hamlet is a very small rural settlement, typically having fewer than 75 to 100 people. You can't say fewer than 75 to 100. Just say fewer than 100. You can't put a range in. You've got to be specific. AI, you're stupid. A village is generally considered to have between 100 to 1,000 residents, though other sources suggest a range of 500 to 2,500. Okay. Towns typically start at 7,500. An enclave refers to a territory entirely surrounded by a foreign territory or different larger municipality. Okay, very interesting. We're all learning something on the early evening show, which is something I really appreciate about what we do here. So let's call it a hamlet, right? Because there were less than 100 people in this particular theatre. Now, they insisted that the place be called Davenham and not Davenham. And it was a bone of some contention. Like, it would make them quite upset. And when I was driving back, I was thinking to myself, what a privilege it must be if your biggest issue is how the hamlet is pronounced. I don't know if there's people in Gaza who are like, it's pronounced Gaza, actually. They're like, we just want the place to exist. That'd be quite nice. We'd like there to be schools, please. Schools, hospitals, buildings, and maybe some human beings would be lovely in this place. I don't care what you call it for now. Let's just stop bombing it. How about that? Or, yeah, places being ransacked in Rwanda or wherever. I wonder, like, if maybe they do. That would be quite cool, isn't it? Like, if you go and do a gig in those places and, like, there's people from rival towns and you mispronounce the name of the town. Let's say someone from Ramallah turns up in Gaza and he's like, it's lovely to be here in Gaza. They're like, what? No, it's Gaza. How fucking dare you, you Ramallah wanker. You stupid Ramallah bastard. They didn't call me a London bastard. But it was just a curious thing to me, that particularly in England, and I notice this when I go on tour, like a huge hobby, a huge pastime of what it means to be English is to shit on other shit towns. Like, you might be in Southampton, but you'll be like, well, Portsmouth's a fucking shithole. And then you go, yeah, but Southampton's not exactly the Garden of Eden, is it? Right? Or Basildon versus fucking Chelmsford, I don't know. We do it in London as well, like north, east, south, west. Like, to a certain extent, again, I'm born and bred East Londoner. Sometimes South London people, they just think it's the only, when you do comedy, if someone says they're from South London, it's the only part of London that gets a huge brap brap cheer. The brap brap felt pointed, but you know what I mean. Like, it's the only part of London where, like, people are so gassed that you've mentioned it. North London, they can be a bit more demure, I think, about it. West London, look, I'm doing it now. Fuck them, innit? East London's where it's at. That's really where the best bit of London is. My mum used to have a saying which was, empty vessels sound the loudest. And I feel like sometimes South London has that energy, bro. I feel like because the connections to South London are so bad, the train connections and to a lesser extent the bus connections, because they're so bad, South Londoners feel the need to have to scream and shout about the fact that they're from South London. I said it. I said what I said. East London, on the other hand, yeah, there are a fair few wankers around there. I get it. I'm with you. I may well be one of them, right? But it's the best connected part of London. I'm ignoring central London, whatever, that's the hub. But in terms of the diversity of access points, right? The greenery, the access to Essex, and then you've got the Olympic Park, and then you've got Shoreditch, and you've got all this amazing food, and all the vibrancy. Come on, man. There's no fucking comparison, bro. East London for life, bruv. In any case, this happens whenever you go up and down this country. Like, people from Liverpool, for example, they've even got like names for like, I'm going to try and get this right. Excuse me. It's like people who've got purple bins are called walls or something. The colour of the bin matters. Let me try and remember this. I should know this because so many of my friends. What's a wall in Liverpool? In Scout, there we go. Liverpool slang. Right. A wall is a slang term used by people from the city of Liverpool to describe someone who lives in the surrounding Merseyside or Cheshire areas, such as the Wirral, St Helens, Widnes or Warrington, but not within the city limits. Okay? It is a light-hearted, sometimes derogatory term for anyone living over the water or in surrounding towns. And the thing is sure, I get it, but it is just one shit part of town saying another shit part of town is shit. That is what the national pastime of England is. You get to any gig, that is the thing that's going to make people go, oh yeah, this is what good, solid banter is. Proper, solid banter. So yeah, it's been a busy week, and I've got another busy week ahead, which is always fun. I'm filming QI again this week. It's going to be, I think, my 7th or 8th appearance on the show, which is such a weird thing for me to like realize, both in terms of my own realization, but realize as in achieve. Is it yeah? Is it an achievement? It's not. It's that. I'm not trying to say it's an achievement. What I'm trying to say is like, when I started doing comedy, I didn't really know much about comedy specifically, but you knew these shows, the Mock the Weeks, the QIs, the Love the Apollos, and I feel really privileged to have done all of them, the shows that I grew up watching and heard of and people have heard of, but it's also a very curious thing where you do these shows and still feel like you're somehow behind. This YouTube show is, in some respects, a kind of effort to try and redress the balance slightly, and take things to the next level, because it feels like TV. I think I've said this before. TV is one of those forms of entertainment that seems to be dying, and now they're saying at the BBC because of the license fee renewal and the anticipated increased cost of the license fee, that more and more people are deciding to just not pay. So the BBC are going to have to cut loads of jobs, because people just don't want to pay. So as of 1st April 2026, the annual UK colour TV licence fee will rise to £180 for the year, with the black and white licence increasing to £60.50. Who has still got a black and white TV? Who? And also, how have you managed to keep a black and white TV running? A, and B, how have you not made money from getting hipsters in said East London to come and watch. £180 for the year. And people are like, nope, we're not paying it. So the BBC are like, I know that they're going to cut loads and loads of jobs. It goes up by £5.50 for the year. Do you pay your TV license? Because if you're listening to this outside of the UK, in the UK, because we've got a national broadcaster, you have to pay a license fee to watch the national broadcast channels, the BBC. And on the BBC, there is no advertising, right? There is no advertising of private companies, which is why there's all these rules against which, what you can say and what you can't say on the BBC. And it is meant to be an entirely impartial network, you know? And that in itself causes so many issues, right? Particularly I feel my heart goes out to anybody who works in BBC News, because what is one person's impartial is another person's taking sides, right? Impartiality isn't always... it's a nice and noble aim, but it isn't always accepted by people, you know? Switzerland were impartial during the Holocaust. That's picking a side, isn't it? To be honest. To be impartial at a time like that, you're like, where? And I think this is the problem, right? With BBC impartiality rules, and my God, the number of tangles that the BBC gets itself up to over this is I would say a lot of their complaints department is just trying to overcome all the criticisms of their entanglements, you know? But yes, I am doing another show, another QI, which I'm very excited about. It's always fun to do that show. And it will air at some point next year, probably at the end of this year, early next year. That's how far ahead they record it. And it's a wonderful production. But there's also this sense of, like, who are the people watching? You know, who are the people that watch these shows now? And does that mean that the shows need to change? Does it mean the shows need to be axed? Do we need to make different kinds of shows that go on TV? People don't watch live TV in the same way unless it's maybe sport. And so is there an incentive for people to make TV that is live, or do you record it in a way that you have a bulk, as QI do, and they're kind of timeless, and they're not affected by topical movements necessarily, unless, of course, as happened, one of the people that you're with is caught up in was it sexual assault allegations? It was some sort of allegation. Look, as soon as the word allegations is used, it's not going to be positive, is it? So one of the people that I did QI with, who shall remain nameless, was at the time of airing embroiled in some, tricky stuff, shall we say, for want of a better phrase. So yeah, that's kind of the big highlight for the coming week. I've also got a show coming up in Kent, always fun, and then I'm going to Birmingham on Saturday for a triple threat show, Asian show. I do a lot of Asian shows, and as I mentioned, Altaf earlier, Altaf is the way his name is meant to be pronounced, but Altaf for the purpose of this, he has revolutionized the Asian circuit and created a thriving circuit of comedy for South Asian audiences up and down the country, and Birmingham is the kind of home, as you'd imagine. And they're really fun because, I get to flex my different languages. It's a slightly different comedy style. It's kind of slightly different comedy expectation. And being able to play those gigs is always really, really fun. And I'm on with Tommy Sandhu and Preet Singh, and it's going to be, it's going to be a really fun time. We're going to have a really, really good time. And that's the thing that I'm trying to do a lot more of. I'm trying to have a good time at the moment because the news is fucked, man. Truth is, I take a passing interest in the news because I have a weekly political podcast, which I do separately, called Non-Censored. Check it out. Non-Censored with Rosie Holt and Brendan Murphy. but also, I guess, in part for like research for comedy or whatever. But my God, it's fucking grim, innit? Jesus Christ. And like, do you know the thing that has irked me? Let's just talk about the Epstein files very quickly, okay? The first thing we need to say is the victims. God knows what's going on with the victims in terms of what they're thinking and feeling, in terms of the way this whole fucking thing is being discussed. The Epstein files have reached a point of almost caricature, right? Where people are talking about it as if there aren't real victims at the core of this. And there are. And look, I'm a comic, so I will make jokes about it. That's true. But I think it's important to remember that there are actually real live victims, and some of them are no longer alive. Rest in peace, Virginia Giuffre, who definitely did not die in a car accident. Don't gaslight us, bro. Come on, man. There is so much knowledge now of what the fuck goes on. And now the Epstein files have proven that all the shit that these conspiracy theorists used to say to us, it's all true, bro. There is a global cabal paedophile ring, and now there's some of them are Ellen DeGeneres. What the hell? Eating flesh. A cannibal. This is just madness. But all that said, like, the victims are at their core, because this kind of stuff has been politicized so much, I don't see the people that wanted to protect our women and children standing outside Buckingham Palace. Where are the riots outside Buckingham Palace? The taxpayer-funded Buckingham Palace that was the home of one of the key perpetrators, one of the key perpetrators. He was very much in the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Key perpetrators of some of the most horrific shit going down in the Epstein files. And, you know, recently, I'm not going to name this person. I had a conversation with someone where they said, look, I'm not trying to defend him, which immediately I should have just shut the conversation down, right? Do you know what? The moment you, or anybody, the moment you start a sentence with, I'm not racist, but I'm not, just stop. At that point, just stop, because you know full well that you are about to try and defend the indefensible, right? Even with this Epstein file, this person said to me, I'm not trying to defend him, but it was with a 17-year-old girl, and there are much worse crimes being committed in the Epstein files. Sure, under the law, legally speaking, maybe there are worse crimes by virtue of the punishment that you get for committing that crime. Or the morality of the crime, right? Like, under 17, under 16, toddler, horrific. Does it get worse the younger they are? Yeah, probably. Probably I can understand that argument being made. And perhaps we can't. The thing is, I think we can deal in absolutes. We can kind of say, look, it is absolutely ludicrous and fucking awful that these teenagers and young people were sexually abused by the wealthy and the powerful, and they were trafficked around like cattle, like slaves, just sex slaves all over the fucking gaff. And some of these people were eaten. What the fuck? But all this, the hypocrisy just doesn't stop. Why? If people came out and said, right, because Epstein is Jewish, is there a problem in the Jewish community? Because a lot of the perpetrators were Jewish. Harvey Weinstein, not in the Epstein files, in the meeting. Do we start saying that there's a problem in the Jewish community? The church literally abuse all these children But even the Catholic Church, I don't think, was the narrative around the Catholic Church. Yes, there's jokes made about them being noncing. Doesn't have the same dark underbelly as when people start saying, oh, there's a problem with Pakistani grooming gangs in the north. Newsflash, they're all bastards. They're all fucking bastards. All right? And then the anger that people have, like, oh, we should protect our women and children. Why are you not rioting outside Buckingham Palace? Why are you not trying to chase this man out of the country? Why are you not saying that he should not be able to not just not commit the crimes, but commit the crimes using our money? Our money. Yours and mine. I'm not saying that if a paedophile commits a crime and he's a private enterprise, that makes it better. No, it fucking doesn't. What I'm saying is, if your ire is that people are using public funds and then committing crime, well, fucking, here's one for you, mate. How about that? Does my fucking head in, man, these people. Everyone's a fucking tosser. Just absolute bollocks. When terrorism happens, it's like, oh, there's a problem in the Muslim community. Wait, what? Are you telling me that there can't be bad Muslims? There can't be people who align themselves with the Muslim faith who happen to be terrorist cunts and paedophiles? Just as there are in the Jewish faith terrorist cunts and paedophiles. Just as there are in the Christian faith terrorist cunts and paedophiles. Whether they use the faith or whether they use the grouping to justify their activity, that's entirely their problem. They're fucking nuts, bro, these people. They're stupid. It's so infuriating to see the hypocrisy of the reaction to these things. You know? Now the Epstein files have reached a point. At one point I was really obsessed with the Epstein files. I watched the documentary and I was like really trying to get under, but now all the files are coming out. Just the way people are reacting and talking about it and turning it into basically a Simpson episode is driving me mad. I just can't. I'm just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's also just too horrific. And like the fact that the things that conspiracy theorists have been saying, and sometimes people I thought were being racist or whatever, they were right, bro. There is a fucking powerful cabal of people noncing our children. It's I can't do the news anymore. But that seems like a very good juncture at which to go to the next bit, which is some questions. Questions from the audience. On Instagram, remember, you can get in touch at Early Evening Show. Drop me a message, if you want your questions answered, whatever. Swag's Mindblower said, did you try the shawarma? Thank you for your shawarma recommendation in Leicester. I wasn't able to make it. Sorry. Someone said, keep going. The first episode was a bit random, though. Yeah, look, they all are. The whole thing's a bit random at the moment. I'm still trying to work it out. Right now, I'm quite enjoying being able to come on and just talk my absolute bollocks. And eventually might turn into something. But for now, just keep persisting if you wish to persist. And then when it does become something that is worthwhile listening to, then you can be like, I was there when it was fucking shit. I am a hero. I'll give you a hero's medal. How about that? Shahid, thank you so much, Shahid Ali. Thank you so much for all your support, man. I really do appreciate it. He said, as it's the festive time of Ramadan, do you have any funny experiences or stories? So for those who might be unfamiliar, it is Ramadan at the moment, which is the holiest month of the Muslim calendar. Am I observing it? No, I'm not. If you have an issue with that, take it up with we'll take it up with God on the Day of Judgment and let him know your feelings about it, right? I don't want to hear your opinion. Anyway, yes, when I used to observe, it was really, yeah, I really loved it. It's a really beautiful month, and I hope if you are observing, it's going really well for you. Particularly if you're in the UK, great time of year to be doing it. You know, you're more or less just skipping lunch. So good for you. But of course, as you know, Ramadan is all about a lot more than just not eating. But one story that I'm reminded of is when we used to do it. Basically, during Ramadan, you should be praying 5 times a day. You should be reading the Quran and just connecting a lot deeper with the faith and all of that. And one particular Ramadan, I remember we asked my younger brother, to lead the prayer at the time. And you guys might do grace or whatever, or someone might say a few words before dinner. But this was for the prayer. Got my brother I said to my younger brother, why don't you do it? And here's, if you are able to, when you are reciting Quranic Arabic, there is a particular intonation, tone, and throat movements and voice that you should really administer to really get the essence of Quranic recitation. It's really beautiful. I mean, even if you aren't that way inclined, just look up on YouTube like recitations of the Quran. There is something quite otherworldly and godly about it. It's really beautiful. Anyway, we asked my brother to lead the call to prayer. And as he was making this attempt to hit this particularly nasal, guttural, kind of from the throat, beautiful recitation, he ended up sounding like Mickey Mouse. He kind of he gave it a and when you're praying, right, obviously a laughter can break your prayer, right? And you have to start again. Laughter, farting, anything like that can break your prayer. So you have to start again. Me and my half-brother, we were kind of just standing behind him, really trying our best to not laugh. And it was just going to happen because he said, "Mah," and he tried to carry on and he couldn't. And so we just tried our best, and eventually we all just burst out laughing, and we had to like start the prayers again. So that was it does speak to a bigger point about accents. Like, there's a lot of conversation about, oh, you can't do an accent, you can't say it in a particular way. But accents and the way things are said are really important to convey meaning, particularly with Asiatic languages. You know, when my name is anglicized, Eshaan doesn't really mean anything. Eshaan means something, you know? And if you are a white person or a person who doesn't speak that language, you're told, don't do the accent when you say the name. But actually, I think it's really important that you do, you know? Like, Eshaan Akbar means something completely different to Eshaan Akbar. Eshaan Akbar doesn't actually mean anything. It's just accented differently. And yeah, I think accents are one of these things where like we drive ourselves insane. Where we're like, oh no, you don't want to offend people. The only time you'll offend somebody is if you are taking the piss, right? But if you are somebody who's genuinely trying to make an effort with somebody, with their name, and you want to say it properly, people appreciate that. When you say certain words with an accent, people understand you better. Like, for example, when I go to my barbers, right, they're all kind of like Turkish, Kurdish, some Iraqis, that region of the world. Now, their English is very good, passable enough for them to be able to run a business and, you know, take my instructions. But I do change up my accent so that it's at a pace and at a clarity or unclarity that they understand, right? So, look, I know that I sound fairly middle class, okay? A lot of the clientele at my barbers are like rude boys. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they talk like this. Like, hey, boss man, I get a number 2 feed in that year. So I'm not saying I go in like a rude boy, but I do like switch up the accent so that they're number 2 feed. So I'm like, oh, hi there, nice to see you. Can I get number 2 feed? I say it like that because then they'll be like, oh, I understood what you said. Like, because English is a new language to me, the order of those words and that particular tone with that kind of mumbling, my brain registers it. So I do switch up my accent. And sometimes, like, I say, like, oh, yo, fam, I'll get some tea, you get me? I slow down like this so that they understand, yeah, because that's where they grew up, fam. But if I'm giving it too much like private school, like, it might be too hard for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's important to diversify the way you speak. And if you're able to speak like the people that they understand, like, that's better, isn't it? So you can communicate. And then we all switch it up, fam. You know what I mean? Like, just switch up the ting, fam. Don't say the ting, Eshaan. Never say that again. Never, ever say that again. When I went to America, I had to ask for water. Every time I said, can I have some water, please? They would not fucking understand. I'd say water. When you go to South Asia, there's certain words, debul. You've got to, like, freshen it up a bit. Is it racist? Yeah, probably. But there's an example of how racism can be used for good. And that is the underlying message of this episode of the Early Evening Show. Racism can be used for good. That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you have a lovely week, whatever you're up to. Get in touch with me at Early Evening Show and let me know the kind of stuff you might want me to talk about. I'll see you again very, very soon. Have a great week, whatever you're up to. Thanks for listening. Big love. Bye, my friends. Have a lovely time. The Early Evening Show is now done.